Bienvenidos a otra conferencia del ciclo de conferencias de Ética, Legislación y Profesión. Hoy tenemos a Bastian Geri, hacktivista en una serie larga de proyectos de software libre, y nos dará la conferencia en inglés, pero con un acento francés, porque él es de París. En general se le entiende bastante bien, así que espero que os guste. Venga, muchas gracias.
Hi, everyone. So can you hear me well? Okay. I've been smiling at Samer, but I didn't understand a single word. But this is just to show the pleasure to be here. I'm Bastian Geri. I hope it's going to be an open-ended discussion. My English is not very good, so I will speak slowly. I hope everyone understands. And I don't care how bad your English is. I just care about your questions, and Spanish questions are welcome. So really feel free, ask your question in Spanish, raise your hand, and someone will translate. The title of my talk is not very modest, as if I could predict the future, but it's more about some collective brainstorming that I hope we're going to have, and that I hope I will make you work on tonight. See, what is the future of hacktivism? And my point is that we have to look in the past. Very simple. You know, this is a very common idea that you have to know history not to repeat the errors. But it's hard to know history when there is no study about history. So since the hacktivist history is very fresh, we still need to study it. But before all that, quick definition. So you are an hacktivist each time you are hacking, like hacking on technology, computers, software, the thing you learn to do here at the university. Each time you're hacking has a purpose beyond itself. So this is a very broad definition, intentionally, because I want hacktivists to encompass all the activities that can have some social and political impact. So hacking free software has a social and political and economical impact on the ecosystem of free softwares. Hacking a system to make it do something else has some social impact that you can even predict. Hacking a system to get some data that you're not supposed to have and spread all this data all over the world has a big social, political impact, and so on and so on. This is very simple definition of what is an activist. So the point is, what is this history about hacktivism? I don't know if you noticed, but there are many, many experts of everything on the television. Everyone is an expert on something, and I won't pretend to be an expert on anything. If I have some expertise, it's just about my own life. And so I will be an expert of my own life and tell you some bits about my recent past as an activist. But before my past as an activist, I'm just recovering from two big events that happened to me recently. The first event was the birth of my daughter 2 years ago. And usually there is this picture of a baby to make the crowd laugh. So you're going to have the baby or the cat or whatever afterwards. And you can do, oh, wow. So the birth of my baby 2 years ago, and a complete burnout 6 months ago. Okay, you're working in the IT industry, or you're going to be working in the IT industry, so expect to have a big burnout at some point in your life, and you better be prepared for that. Especially if you want to be socially and politically involved in some activism, it's going to be very tiring, and maybe you're going to burn out. So, because of these two big events, I realized two things. The first event made me realize that we are not alone on the earth, and we are going to die. Even you, me, everyone is going to die, but there is someone that we left after us. I know it's very common to think about that, but sometimes it's good to think again. So we had to fight for future generations. We all heard about this future generation thing, but it's hard to realize until you have a baby, because your baby is your future generation. And the second event made me realize that I was being stupid for the last 15 years, because you have a burnout when you don't have any income, when you are working hard on some stuff that don't get you money enough. Okay? And we all try to survive, and we all try to have money, and we all want to align our purpose as a human being, as a hacker, and the money, right? So the burnout happens when you don't find the right balance. So I had to sit down and think, okay, how can we organize ourselves better? Okay, what are the priorities when we want to be hacktivists, and how to spend our time? What is stealing my time right now? Okay. So this were the recent events. So I'm feeling better, thank you, and I hope I will motivate you to follow that path. So Deleuze had a say that we don't think randomly. Okay, something in the outside world forces us to think. And what forces me to think is that in the current state of the technology, we have all what the hippie fathers of us have been dreaming about. You know, communication means worldwide technology to interact with each other, to discover new culture, to create new stuff. And what are we doing with it? How the world has been changing? Well, we are still waiting for the good news, right? And I think about this every day. Like, there is a strong problem here. Like, all this technology that we hoped would save us from the nuclear war and from the disaster of the humanity, well, they did nothing that we expected. So what do we do now? The first thing is to try thinking, but there are two things that prevent us from thinking. The first one is this ideological discourse in the media about the revolutions. Okay? I think even you, like if you think about 10 years ago, when you used to think about computer science, you had maybe 4 or 5 languages, and you had maybe 3 or 4 methodologies on how to program and how to do that stuff. How many languages you have now? And how many languages are fighting to prove that they are the best? And that there is some kind of revolution behind that, okay? Who is doing some closure, for example? Functional programming. Yeah? So you know you are the elite, right? Haskell. Who is brainy enough to do some Haskell stuff and functional stuff? Yeah? Okay, cool. So you are and how many of you have this feeling that there are so many revolutions in the technology, in the new API and new stuff? Okay? Even in the last 10 years, we can realize that there is a wealth of new stuff, new. This is the most used word in the digital sphere, new. Everything is new. Okay? To some respect, this is true. Okay. Wikipedia is quite new. It's been 14 years ago. Facebook is quite new. All that stuff is quite new, but it distracts us from looking deeper into the history. And it distracts us from criticizing. And the second thing that prevents us from thinking thoroughly is this myth of technical neutrality. You know, this is this metaphor of technology being either a knife. Okay, I can use a knife to eat my steak, or being a car. Okay, why would you need to learn computer science? This is, you know, a computer is just like a car. It's just something neutral. It's just, but do you really think cars are neutral? Do you really think cars didn't change the way we live? Well, of course it did. The same that computer do. And computer and technology in general is not neutral. again, I'm strong opinionated on this because I want you to say, no, I disagree. Technology is neutral, okay? And that we can start discussing it more thoroughly. But these two ideas that there are so many revolutions in IT and and that IT is neutral is framing your future, okay? You're going to be worker in computer science, building stuff, building technical stuff, and you don't really have to mess with politics and you just have to push forward the progress and all these revolutions. And maybe if you are pushing the right digital revolutions, you're going to be rich, okay? And maybe when you're going to be rich, you can change the world by having like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, something like that. So I think we have to keep our distance and think that nothing is so new and technology not so neutral. So that are the bits about me. So this is me, Bastien Guéry. You can reach me and send me emails there. And you can also tweet at BZG2. This is what I've been doing for the last 15 years. 15 years ago, I'm describing GNU Linux and Emacs, sorry. And in 2001, I'm a philosophy student, and I have a course on patents in medicine. So I get interested into patents in the software industry. And my teachers don't know anything about that because they are growing, the background is philosophy, and philosophers are not really into computers, okay? This is a cultural thing. You cannot do anything right now. So I study patents and I write an article not on patents, but on what are the technical innovations behind free software, about versioning system and collaboration, real-time collaboration on building software and so on and so on. Then I continue studying philosophy, working on Turing, and I'm a host of the Department of Cognitive Studies, and I start to get interested in open access. I installed the first ePrints instance, and I start being an activist because I spread the word about ePrints, about open access in the new universities. But Department of Cognitive Science, of Cognitive Studies was very new, and we had this large exposure because it was new and because cognitive studies were bringing people from different departments. Okay, from biology, from mathematics, computer science, engineers, and philosophers, logicians. All those people were meeting there and then going back to their universities. So if you had the chance to tell them about open access, they would spread the word in all universities. And in 2005, it was the first year in France where we had this law about copyright and trying to prevent users from downloading stuff, and from peer-to-peer networks, tracking users, and so on. And this is the DATSI law. And again, the École Normale Supérieure was the place where I pushed and organized a conference so that people can spread the word all over the other universities. Then I got interested in Emacs and Augment, starting to hack more. Why? Because when I wrote this article in 2001, the reception by philosophers were like, okay, this is really interesting. We didn't know about software patent, or we were not interested into that, and now we're going to look into this. But the reaction from developers were like, who is this philosopher? Come on, he's saying about, for example, I used the freshmeat.org. And for those who are old enough to know freshmeat, is freshmeat.net. And so I was somehow attacked by developers who were thinking, we don't need any philosophers. We don't need any sociologists. We don't need any view on what we are doing because we know what we are doing. And this is the mainstream idea still today. So when I discovered Emacs, I got into it more and more. And in 2006, this was the year where I decided to try to hack more and to learn more about developing and to contribute more on the lower ground, to bring real stuff, not just ideas. Then 2007, there was a group, again starting at the ENS, École Normale Supérieure, about education, cognitive science, and computers. And the idea was, how can we use cognitive science to prove that computers are good for education? Which was a big hypothesis, right? Because we wanted to demonstrate that computers were good for education through cognitive science. And the results were kind of disappointing that we have no proof, okay? All depends on the methodology, on the pedagogy, and all that stuff. That's how I got into the one laptop per child project. So how many of you know about this one laptop per child project? Or the project of the $100 computer? Yeah? Okay. So this project started in 2005, and this is about building a computer with free software and a low ecological footprint, and to distribute it to the developing world. And this is led by Nicolas Negroponte at the MIT, and I had the chance to join the project for 1 year in 2008, and I started the French association working on the software for education, on the translation, on bringing new pedagogical contents, and so on. And, and this is very important because now it's at the center of a huge worldwide community of people interested in education. There are 2.5 million computers in the world, XO computers from OLPC, and all this is bringing a lot of research in every country about how to use computers in education. And today, I encourage you to read the reports from Uruguay. So Uruguay, they bought computers for one entire generation, so they have lots of research on how to manage such a project, building kind of clusters between the Ministry of Transport, the Ministry of Telecommunication, and the Ministry of Education, how to let local communities appropriate the Wi-Fi connection and the technology itself, and so on and so on. So 2009, I went to Beijing, and I led a summer school on using free software for research. So what are the tools for doing bibliography and for writing articles? What is how are we going to write articles in 10 years? And all that field of research. 2010, I worked as the first employee for Wikimedia France. And together with Samer, we started this Move Commons idea. So all of you are familiar with Move Commons? No? Okay, so all of you are familiar with Wikipedia? Yeah, all of you are awake already? Yeah, okay. So Wikipedia is the big, famous encyclopedia, and Wikimedia is the movement behind it. Who is familiar with Wikimedia? Yeah, are you part of the Spanish Wikimedia movement somehow? No, not yet, okay. But you know this structure of having the movement and the projects. The projects are Wikipedia, of course, but also Wiki Commons for the pictures, Wiki University, all these different projects. Wiktionary, okay? And Wikipedia is just the most prominent project, and the Wikimedia Foundation, based in the US, is in charge of paying for the bandwidth, the servers, the infrastructure, developing MediaWiki, the software that is used. And all over the world, there are chapters. So there is a big chapter in France, in Germany, and in different countries. And this is a very complex system of how they raise the money, but it's a mix of raising the money in their own countries for themselves, for some association, and for some others, the call for donations is centralized on Wikipedia, goes to the Wikimedia Foundation, and is redistributed through a fund dissemination committee. Okay. Anyway, this was really important to discover all this and to discover the kind of hacktivism that is behind Wikipedia, because I would say there are right now two planets, the one from free software and the one from Wikipedia. And strangely enough, there are not that many communication between the two planets. Like most Wikipedians, like in my time, like 5 years ago, maybe this changed, but most Wikipedians wouldn't know about the Creative Commons license. They just know it's some license here, but they wouldn't know about Lawrence Lessig and the guy behind the Creative Commons project. So all of you know about Lawrence Lessig thanks to the course you have here, but most Wikipedians, they don't. They just come from various backgrounds and completely different backgrounds than the guy from free software, who are into this history of free licenses and free software. So 2011, in Wikimedia France, I organized a big conference on how to have more museums use Wikipedia and how to have more Wikipedia page use public domain pictures from museums. So encouraging museums both to put pictures on the public domain and to change the law behind that. And there is a law called the Freedom of Panorama, which allows people to take pictures in the streets of buildings. So this law is very important, and I don't know if you have it in Spain. I know in Europe, in France, we don't have it, meaning that if we take a picture in the street, we have to check whether the architect is dead more than 70 years ago. Otherwise, we are not allowed to publish the picture. Okay? This is a different case than for the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower, you can take it, of course. This is more than 1 century ago. But the lightning in the evening, you cannot take a picture and put it on the web, just because this is some work of art. Okay. So this was a big moment where all the Wikipedia community gathered and met big museums like Le Louvre, like Château de Versailles, and we had a Wikipedian go into the Château de Versailles for 6 months, telling all the people in Versailles how Wikipedia was working, and this was a big exchange of knowledge. 2012, I must have been doing nothing, I guess. 2013, well, 2012 is the year where we started in France a project about having a museum of computer science. Do you have a museum of computer science in Spain? Yes? In this building? How is it going? Good? Many visitors? Yeah? Nobody can talk, of course, okay. But how can it go better? You know? Maybe being more central, be bigger. What do you do in the museum? Is it just about looking at computers? How interesting. Okay. So we had this nice gathering in France about what should be the next big museum for computer, because we don't even have a computer. You know, that's the difference. French people, they like to talk a lot about things they will have. And it's not yet existing, but we had a lot of interesting discussion. And what I suggested was to have what I call the retro programming lab, meaning that you could go into some computer instead of just looking at it. You could program it. Okay, I have a computer from maybe 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, and have some instruction on how to program this computer. Have workshops on how to program BASIC on some Amstrad or Atari computer from the old days. Why? I think for fun, and also to to walk in the same path that our parents, or even me, or people from an older generation have been walking through, to just understand the thinking and to understand the evolution of interfaces, of languages, and what were the constraints that have been achieving the computer science as we know it right now. So 2013 was about crowdfunding in free software for free software. So first I had this idea of starting a new company, because obviously when you think about crowdfunding, you see the growth of the sector and you think, okay, there is money to do here. And but instead of that, what was effective is that we organized the first hackathon. So what is a hackathon? Hackathon is just having some place, some sponsors, and some people that you put in the place, okay? First hackathon, we had 5,000 euros from, no, we had 500 euros from 4 companies, 2 organizations and 2 companies. They gave us the money, we gathered the people, and we told the people, okay, now you can give the money to free software projects. Okay, you don't have it to do it on your own, behind your computer, late at night, and using your own money. You can do it using the money from the sponsor. And it was amazing. Like, all the people were like, yeah, I want to give the money that is not mine. And the sponsors were very happy. Yeah, of course, it's they meet the people who wants to give to free software, and they become friends immediately. So this is a very effective way of supporting projects, and we did that 1 month ago again, and it was even more successful. We had more money, like 4,000 euros, and we had more projects. For example, the projects who've been earning the most money was Open Food Fact. Do you know this project? Open Food Fact is a huge database about facts on foods that you buy in the shops everywhere. So you can go online and check the calorie, how is it being produced, what is all that. And this project earned 500 euros because of the hackathon. So they were like, okay, and now it's spreading. We are spreading the word that people who need money in the free software and free project communities can gather and organize a hackathon, and you can too. And 2015, maybe I have a rest, but yeah, I'm not sure. So, as you can see, this is a bit chaotic, and no doubt that I went into a burnout, but there is a common link which I learned from Richard Stallman and Walter Bender. When you know these people, there is not one day when Richard Stallman is not fixing something on Emacs. Is not, patching Emacs or patching some other GNU software. So there is not this thing about being a guru and keeping away from the dirty stuff, from the ground. No, they are always doing things on the ground. So the way I see hacktivism is this idea of always doing stuff on the ground. You're not deciding. There is not this old world where you decide stuff for others to do, okay? And the other thing is to try to build bridges. Bridges between education and free software, between research and free software, between the new social economy and free software through crowdfunding. Between real-time events with people around some common purpose and free software. So always try to do different stuff and to do it together. So there is not much time left for thinking, okay, when you're doing all this, like programming on Emacs, chatting at 3 a.m. in the morning with Samer, who says, yeah, we have to do this for Move Commons. Oh, by the way, I didn't describe Move Commons. So Move Commons is inspired by Creative Commons, and the purpose of Move Commons is to create a simple labeling system so that associations and initiatives who are contributing to the commons, whether it be knowledge commons or ecological commons or urbanism commons, that you can spot very easily what organization is contributing to the commons. When you go on the web, you have all this organization, association, and you want to volunteer for someone, but you don't know what is the real contribution to the commons. So I will leave the commons for another talk of Samer definition because he's the specialist. But Move Commons was this simple idea of, okay, let's try to organize this ecosystem of association so that users know where to go. The same way that they know their rights through Creative Commons, they want to know where to go with Move Commons. So the more I was staying on the ground and hacking and trying to build stuff, I was the view was more and more narrow. You know this feeling when you are debugging something, okay? You have to abstract yourself from all of the thinking. It's a very psychological, intense sensation. You have to debug this bug, and you have to concentrate, and you have to put all these factors in your memory just to kill one bug, okay? And then you tend to be more and more narrow-minded, which is all the purpose. Your mind is like a laser. You want to be a laser and just to kill this bug. You abstract from the environment. You can spend hours. You forget about the time. You know this feeling, okay? But I was like, and sometimes I was, breathing a bit on the Sundays and reading stuff randomly on the web. And the more I was reading, the more I was like, okay, I thought everything was new, but nothing is new. Okay, for example, I discovered brainstorming is from the 40s. Okay, I was thinking all this nice, methodology that we have in agile development, agile stuff. This is just based on new management, new programming methodology that are really inspired by the same thing, by the same revolution, like brainstorming from Alex Osborne in advertising. Okay, just break all the rules and have a different way of doing things. Same for the Memex. Who knows the Memex? And Vannevar Bush. Okay, Vannevar Bush wrote an article in 1945 called As We May Think. And in 1945, he described the internet. He described this kind of big memory that we can access through a screen. Okay? After the talk, I have some picture, and I will show you the picture of the Memex. And this is really, when you read this article, everything is here. Like the potential for humans being to connect through the Memex, and the potential for the mind to be augmented by the Memex. Okay? So all the discussions that we have about internet bringing people together, and internet either being something that impairs the thinking, Google makes us stupid, or something that augments our capabilities and empowers users to think more about different stuff and so on, it was here. So this is, this article, when you read it, rethink what you've seen as some revolution. Norbert Wiener. Who knows Wiener by its name? Okay, he's the inventor of the cybernetic. Okay, in the 50s, cybernetic is a science of feedback and control, feedback and command. The thermostat. So the thermostat is something that auto-regulates, like automate. So this is because you've been shy that you don't raise your hand, right? So don't be shy, please. And in 1950, he writes something called the human use of human beings. So in our times, when we try to understand what Google, Facebook, and all these big industries are doing with our data, are we more free to communicate with people from kindergarten because they found us on the Facebook? Are we more free because of that? Or are we less free because some other people are using our personal data to advertise? Are we manipulated or not? Okay. In 50, Norbert Wiener wrote this book that went very famous in the US. It's not just a book for a few specialists. It's a book, the same for Claude Shannon when he wrote the Mathematical Theory of Information. This is a very technical book. But it was really, really famous in the US. It was not just for the specialists. And we have to think about this to understand how young Americans that later on were building the internet were influenced. They were influenced by the Cold War, the fear of the extinction of the human race because of the nuclear war. It was in subconscious for everyone, but it was really strong. And they were influenced by people like Norbert Wiener, who said, okay, I invented cybernetics, but maybe this is the worst thing that may happen to the humanity. We have to control this thing. And he wrote another book called God and Golem, which I'll come back later on. So, who is programming using object-oriented language. Yeah, everyone. Who think it's from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Okay. So you know about the roots. But the source of inspiration is the sketchpad. Do you know the sketchpad? Okay. The military guys, they were building new interfaces and new algorithms to intercept missiles and so on and so on. But one of the interfaces they were building was the sketchpad. It was a screen that you could draw on with some optical pen. And when you draw a line on the screen, a triangle, for example, so you know you've seen the demonstration on the web. It's amazing. You draw a triangle, and even if you don't draw until the real edge of the line, by some magnetism that we are used to in GIMP or other software, it will stick to the edge. Okay? And then from this shape, you could say, this is a pattern that I want to repeat. So the sketchpad has been influencing Alan Kay for inventing object-oriented programming because of this spatial and classification metaphor, and it has been also influenced in designing the interfaces. And this is from like 50 years ago. So what we learned since then? Who knows Douglas Engelbart? He passed away recently, and all the medias were saying he invented the mouse. Okay, he invented the mouse, but he was doing much more than that. I discovered the mother of all demos. So the mother of all demos is a demo that he did online and in front of an audience to demonstrate the capabilities of his computer. The capabilities of the computers were about organizing knowledge in a more efficient way. And I happen to know about the mother of all demo thanks to people from the Emacs org-mod list. So org-mod is just this organizer that you are seeing right now. It's just a to-do list that you can fold and unfold stuff. You can add tags and to-do keywords and do anything. So the mother of all demos is really interesting to see because it looks like this. I know I use something very ancient and very not user-friendly, and that's something that we're not used to, but all the concept about folding, unfolding, moving stuff around, accessing the internet or the memex through a link into this kind of textual interface were presented by Douglas Engelbart in this. And I told you about OLPC, one laptop per child, this idea of having small portable notebooks for children. The first idea of a small portable notebook or textbook for children with a screen was from Alan Kay in 1972. Actually, he made a drawing in 1968, but he wrote an article in 1972 describing the Dynabook. And the Dynabook would be some portable computer that you could have in your pocket with a touchscreen interface and some educational software. This is 45 years ago, and we need to think about what were the roots of this idea and how it's been spreading in the ecosystem and why we've been forgetting it for so long. Another influential book was this, in the US, was this book by Schumacher in 1973, Small is Beautiful. The idea was that we have big industries and we have, what's happening? Is it me? I don't move anymore. Is that we have big industries, we have big change about, and all these changes are supported by big state bureaucracy. But we have to fight against this and find just infinitesimal and small changes, small technological changes. This is why it's called Small is Beautiful. And all this started a new movement called appropriate technology, When I say a movement, it's because there were lots of thinkers and lots of hacktivists. People trying to practice, the small and is beautiful way in their home, repairing stuff. All this thing that we are used to think as the do-it-yourself movement. It started here, long time ago. Okay, it's not new. So again, always think about why are we presented things as new. This is just to distract us. This is just to prevent us to look at the history of things and to have a strong criticism of what's happening. And again, some of you, I guess, are familiar with the approach of design pattern, okay? Or maybe you read this book about design pattern. Who is a bit familiar, even with the expression or the notion, okay? This may be something that you learn in computer science, okay? And but this comes from Christopher Alexander. He was an architect, and he's the one who brought the idea of modularity in urbanism, saying we have these big, giant universities, but they are not functional anymore. They have been thinking by a hierarchy with someone at the top and some executors. This is not the right way of doing stuff. We need to do stuff in a more agile way, okay? And we need to have patterns that we can reuse, okay? If we want to have, places in a university for students who make sports, we need to think these places not as something monolithic, but as something with small modules that we can arrange together. And this has been inspiring the computer industry and the software industry into thinking, okay, maybe modularity is better for security and functionality. And then it was better for collaboration and all that stuff. But again, so I say just connecting the dots, because all these readings that I was doing were like, all the things that I thought were new are actually quite old. So why I'm not aware of the thing? Why I'm not aware of the history? So there could be two reasons. Maybe because the surrounding economy and the surrounding ideology doesn't want me to know the history. Or maybe there is no history. Maybe it's too fresh, okay? And the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So now I will come back to what I call the roots of cyber culture, because all of you are familiar with Julian Assange. Who is not? Or maybe that's my English. Julian Assange, WikiLeaks. Okay. Snowden. We all heard about this. Okay, so we know what is activism, what is cyber culture. But again, my point is that not knowing the history will make us do the same errors again and again. So what is the history of cyber culture? As I said, there were, just after the war, there were a few trends that are very important to understand. Kids were really frightened for the human race to extinct, especially in the US. There were all this science fiction, all this media representation that we could die, that maybe they were the last generation. It was really strong in the literature everywhere. Another big trend, and it has been studied quite closely, is that there was a divide between the Americans. Some were saying, okay, we put a lot of money in the military stuff, and lots of consortium between military and universities. Now we have to go back from that, and we have to spend less money on military stuff. And the others were like, no, we have to keep the same pace. And this is what happened. So there is this big university military going together and lots of funding into that direction, which was supposed to protect the US from the Cold War, but which was spreading this feeling into this generation that they were forced into some kind of life they didn't want. There was the fear of being the last generation, and the fear of this state who had very rigid view on going to the war in Vietnam and stuff like that, and being a big bureaucracy that was directing the life. I'm not a number. Remember that slogan? I'm not a member comes from there. This is, I don't want to be part of this bureaucratic stuff. I don't want to be part of this organized state fear of being the last generation. But at the same time, I have this fear and I can't get rid of it. And the two others and the two resistances from there were the rise of the new left. Okay, people going in the streets and saying, no, we don't want to go to Vietnam. Organizing strikes, organizing riots in many cities. Like in 1967, there were like 167 cities where police and military guards had to come to stop the riots. So it's huge. Okay, so and this new left was organized as a traditional way of fighting, you know, like unions or like a political party. They had leaders, they had supporters, they were using the same traditional way of funding a party, and they were just having a program and do stuff like that. So this was one way of resisting. The other way was what Fred Turner is calling new communalism. New communalism is this giant exodus of people in the countryside building new communities, small communities, like what we know as the hippie movement. So during the history of the US, there were between the 18th century and the Second World War, there were like 600 communities, like experiments of living together, either based on some religious belief or not, just communities. Escaping the state, escaping this big bureaucracy of the state, of taxes and stuff like that. So 600, which is big enough, but not giant. And for example, there is Nathaniel Hawthorne, a novelist from the 19th century who wrote a novel called Valjoie, and this is his report of living in such community. And this is very interesting because he says, okay, I'm doing some gardening, I'm helping people, we are close to the earth, but I still feel like I'm just some intellectual and that I don't have my place here and so on. There is some kind of artificial feeling about trying to pretend that we are peasants. Okay. So 600 communities. Then during the decade in the 60s and the 70s, there were 15,000 communities in the US with 700,000 people doing these experiments of communities. So this is huge. When we speak about the hippie movement, this is not just a few people taking drugs and listening to punk and rock and roll. This is huge, like 700,000 people going into these experiments. So this is what Fred Turner called the new communalism. And there is a strong divide between these two kinds of resistance. The new left is like we have to fight in the street, we have to gather and to be a political force, and we need to be on strike, and we need to denounce segregation, all that stuff, and to fight with the same method that we did already, and with the same method that our enemies. And the others were like, well, no, the solution is not in the collective, it's in the individual. And it's in the way we can change ourselves, our soul, by taking drugs, listening to music, and do stuff differently. So what is interesting is that both movements, they share the same feeling that there is this big military bureaucracy that is, framing their lives, and they don't want that. But the first movement is like technology is part of the bureaucracy. This is just a way to control us. And there are strikes in Berkeley and in other places not to have a student's number, not to let students be registered by a computer, because computer is part of the evil. And new communalism is more open to the idea of using technology. And this is mainly thanks to someone called Steve Brown, and his biography is called From Counterculture to Cyberculture by Fred Turner. And you should read this book because it explains everything. So for example, let's take this quote from Mario Savio in Berkeley, 1964. There is a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odd. Yeah. Just let me, yeah. There is a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you sick and hurt, and you can't take part. So we have to break the machines. The machines are part of the bureaucracy. Whereas on the side of the new communalism, the trajectory is this, going from the Beat generation, so Kerouac, people experimenting with drugs, traveling the US, trying to break the machine from inside. And in the 60s, Steve Brandt doing experiments in the artistic field. And this artistic field with John Cage and people like that is very open to using new technology because they feel like they are researchers and scientists and they want to experiment with performances using projections, sound, everything electronic. They are not afraid of that. They are integrating it in their artistic way of criticizing the society. Ken Kesey, he's the father of Fly Over Cuckoo's Nest. You've seen that movie with Jack Nicholson? I have a picture of the movie when, okay. And and he's also the one who was directing, although he wouldn't say I was directing, but he was directing the Merry Prankster. And the Merry Prankster was where people traveling the US in a bus, like a completely psychedelic bus, and pretending there was some kind of LSD for the US. And doing the revolution by spreading ideas on Zen, Buddhism, sexual liberation, experimentation, and all that stuff. So this is the new communalism, trying to change things at the individual level and willing to and accepting to bring technology into this way of changing stuff. So in 1968, Steve Brandt started the Whole Earth Catalog. And this has been part of the counter and the cyber culture since then. This was just a big catalog where you could not buy stuff directly, but you could know where to buy stuff that you needed for your community. For example, if you need some piece for a tractor of doing food, of growing plants, whatever, you could have this information in the Earth catalog, which was encompassing catalogs for everything. Okay? I don't know if you heard about this project, about someone making tutorials on how to build a farm from A to Z. Okay? And we're like, wow, this is new because this is a TEDx talk. No, come on. The Whole Earth Catalogs was already about this, about giving people the small tool to build the small communities that they need to make the small revolutions in themselves and around themselves at a local level. And this has been a huge success. After the Whole Earth Catalog, they started in 85 the Whole Earth Electronic Link, the WELL. This is called the WELL, and this has been part of the cyber culture since the beginning. Because they were like, okay, all the communities, most of them were just failures because it's so hard to be a community and to have an organization, a stable organization. But there is this place with computers where we can have communities, virtual communities, where we have anonymity, where we can be all together in the same hippie way that we were expecting. So the deception from the hippie movement converted itself into some big hope into the cyber universe. And the WELL was inheriting from the Whole Earth Catalog as a way of changing lives. And then this was the final step for integrating the technology into this idea of changing the world. Whereas the new left was still hostile about technology and so on. So integration of technology into counterculture through the new communalism via the Whole Earth Catalog, the WELL, and finally Wired. Okay? Wired, the magazine that you still read, was funded in 1993 by people who started also the WELL and the Whole Earth Catalog, who were hippies at the time and converted themselves to the new economy and being very libertarian and saying, yeah, we need to rush into this new economy. So this is how we can understand the way a very conservative view about the economy, like that capitalism is good, met with the love for technology and the hope for changing people's lives around, you know? The ideas from hippies that we need to be in peace all together, the ideas from libertarians that capitalism is the best system and it will solve everything by the auto-regulation of the market, which was also grounded on cybernetics and so on. And the idea is that technology was the real means for that. And you have Facebook, okay? A giant capitalistic success bringing people together in hope of a revolution that will never come, okay? Because Facebook is not political, whereas those movements were political at the beginning. So there was a book in France translated by The New Spirit of Capitalism by Chapello. And it's very interesting. It's about why all the ideas that we had in 68 in France, for example, in May 16, have been swallowed by capitalism. And they distinguish two criticisms that happened in the time. One is the social criticism, that we want more freedom and we want more equality between people. And the other one was the artistic criticism, that we don't want this society of just consumption, of marketing. This is fake. We want something authentic. And we want to come close to something more authentic. And you find these two kinds of criticism in the hippie movement, okay? We don't want the bureaucracy, and because this bureaucracy is just preventing the system to evolve in a more horizontal way, in a more egalitarian way. So this is a social criticism, and this is why they are called left. But at the same time, you have the artistic criticism, saying we want to be more self-empowered. We want to flourish as individuals. We want to experiment new stuff. We don't want our life to be framed into something that is predefined by the government. And we want authentic contact with reality and with others. So you find these two kind of criticism within the hippie movement, and you can combine this with the two left that and the two resistances that I distinguished, like the new left and the new communalism. And you also find that, again, into two strong metaphors. For Steve Jobs, computers are bicycles. This is a metaphor that he often employs, like it's a communication. With computers, you can go farther quicker. For Alan Kay, computers are musical instruments. And he said that he used this metaphor to explain why computers are failing at school. He said, well, if you put a piano in a classroom, nothing will happen. You will just have, children doing random stuff on the piano, but the music is not in the piano. The music is the music, and you have to learn the music to play the piano. So it's some kind of instrument that allows you to enact the music, but it's not the music itself. So computers are not magical instruments that will change the mind of children. You have to learn how to play the computers, and you have to learn the music to learn how to be creative. So these two metaphors, the first one, Steve Jobs insists on how computers can help the social revolution, okay? Bringing people close to each other. The second metaphor lets us understand how to accomplish the artistic revolution, artistic in the sense that feeling more authentic, more self-empowered. And then finally, you have people mixing the two kinds of criticism. There is a book by Matthew Crawford in 1999, Shop Class as Soulcraft, an inquiry into the value of work. And his theory is that we have too many things at our disposal that makes us forget that we need to, how to do these things by yourself. Okay? Basically, he was some thinker, some knowledge worker in a think tank, and he had this feeling he was doing fake stuff, non-authentic. So he had to go back, and he started to run a motorbike shop. And he felt like it was more authentic. He was repairing stuff for real. You know, the same thing I said about Richard Stallman continuing to patch software. You have to do real stuff and meeting real people about their real needs and being in a real interaction with people when you are repairing stuff, changing their lives bit per bit, and so on. And the title for this book is inspired by the title of a very famous book in the 70s by Robert Pirsig, The Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, an inquiry into values. So this is kind of a trip of a father with his son going through the US and trying to tell all the people, your job could be a real job if you want to hack stuff for real, if you want to repair your motorcycle by yourself. So the do-it-yourself movement is really inspired by all these things. And there is another another thinker and world change maker, which is William Morris, which is more famous as the one who started the arts and crafts movement. But in 1880, started to do some conferences on socialism. So he was really politically engaged, and his discourse was not the conventional Marxist discourse. It was more about, look at how your life has been damaged by consumerism, by the standardization of objects around you. So what he wanted to bring is a small revolution by letting people buy stuff that are handmade and that are really not artistic, but artisanal. And this comes close to things that we hear now about the changing economy on do-it-yourself, on 3D printing and stuff like that. So this inspiration is also very important. So finally, there is this giant frame on when you are thinking about technology. We have to go back to philosophers and some myth to understand what we are talking about. In Heidegger, there is this description of technology as something that is framing and limiting life, okay? As if you have tools, but the tools, you are prisoners from the tools, basically. And this is das Gestell. Okay, I don't know how there is always some funny discussions about how to translate this, but framing is a good description. So meaning that you think we are changing the environment for our own purpose through technology, but in fact, we are changing the perception of human beings because the technology is so powerful that it's framing our lives, which is kind of relevant considering what we've been doing with the digital environment. This is now an environment that is controlling and framing our minds and what we want to do and what we can do online and what people we can meet and so on and so on. So this concept is very interesting. There is another thinker, Gilbert Simondon, a French one, which was very early into the criticism of automatism. He said there is this dream from technical people to automate everything, to get rid of the human from the technical loop. But there is a danger in this, and the danger is the same that the one Heidegger has been pointing to, is that you think you're controlling stuff, and you think you're controlling stuff by getting rid of the human factor, but in fact, the more you get rid of it, the more it controls yourself. And all this goes back to the same myth that we've been talking about for decades, for centuries. Prometheus, stealing the fire but being punished. Okay? Frankenstein. And Frankenstein has been written in 18th century 18 by Mary Shelley. And the ideas came from Lord Byron, who was thinking about, hey, you should write some history about a ghost, and Lord Byron is the father of Ada Lovelace that has been doing stuff on computers. So there is a mix of people and ideas here that is interesting. And finally, the golem. The golem is less famous as a myth, but the idea is that there was a rabbin. He built a robot. When he wanted the robot to be alive, he put a note with the name of God on the note, and he put the note in the mouth of the robot. And then the robot could walk and do his stuff as a slave, as a robot should do. And when he wants the robot to go to switch off, he just takes off the paper with the name of God. And one day, on one Friday, he forgot to take the paper back. The robot becomes completely crazy, and finally there are two different ends for the story. Either he kills the rabbin, either it dies. Okay, so either the robot wins, either the rabbin win by controlling the robot. But it's all about the same story, about technology that slips away from our hands and that is controlling ourselves instead of letting us control it. The Platon, in Phaedr, so it's more than 2,000 years ago, in Phaedr said that the writing, the capacity of writing was sent as a gift, as a pharmacon, which means as a remedy to help memory. Okay? And we understand this idea very, very easily. Except that in Greek, pharmacons means both the remedy and the poison. So the ambiguity is lying right there at the very beginning. And Derrida has made a whole career on exploring this ambiguity of the pharmacon being both the poison and the remedy. And Bernard Stiegler, a philosopher about technology, is still digging into this ambiguity. But Plato is also famous for having criticized the writing, saying that writing should be not forbidden, but limited. Because when you read books, you think the author is not there to reply. You have this feeling that the book has some authority on you, and you are losing memory. He was saying that already. And these are kind of the same arguments that people are using against Wikipedia. There is no real distinction between you and the authors, especially because the authors are several ones. There are several authors, and they are using pseudonyms, so there is not a real man-to-man discussion, which is the place where rationality grows, as Plato thinks. The second argument is that, yeah, there is a fake feeling of authority because Wikipedia presents itself as an encyclopedia. But this is fake because there is no real authority because you don't know who is writing. And last but not least is Wikipedia. With Wikipedia, we don't have to learn anything by heart, which is exactly what Plato was saying. So again, the parallel between this criticism on Wikipedia and Plato's criticism on writing always reminds us of this big, simple idea that maybe the remedy is also the poison. And this is why every technologist and everyone involved into technology should think twice about this famous idea of the neutrality of technology. So a small word summarizing what I'm saying is that freedom without consciousness is useless, and consciousness without freedom is powerless. We have to go both ways, always. And you cannot really be an activist if you just go in the technology side, which is something that we already know, but the more history we read, the more powerful this idea becomes. So, what can we do? So we can do, yeah, as a parenthesis, there are two ways of classifying philosophers. The first way, you can distinguish those who pretend to start from scratch and say, okay, I'm the beginning, I will rethink everything. I will forget all the books and rethink everything. This is Descartes, for example. And those who say, okay, philosophy has a history, and I need to be faithful to my master, and my master is Plato, and I'm just Aristotle. I will unfold all these ideas. And another classification is about the human nature. Very simply, you can distinguish philosophers who say there is a human nature, and those who say no, there isn't. And all these two things changes the way about how to read them and whether they want to spread some ideology or not, and if this is, and how they do it. 5 trends before going to the to-do list. Our devices are less and less hackable. Okay, your computer is more and more like your mobile, but your mobile is more and more close. The IT switching costs. So the switching cost is the cost of switching from, for example, one operating system to another, one computer to another, one account to another, one network to another. All the switching costs are higher and higher. You know, when you start using Google, you can switch 3 months after that. It's going to be that difficult, but if you wait for 3 years, it's going to be difficult. And companies are pushing into that direction so that the switching costs are higher and higher. And no matter if we are working to have more interoperability, it will be some economical strain going in that direction. States and governments are putting more and more regulation. And this is what is more apparent into activism, is that fighting bad regulation. But the trend is very strong, more and more regulation, and on various topics that were not tackled before. And the same goes for activism, more and more diverse. And the second thing is that more and more heroes. I have mixed feelings about heroes. Like for one thing, it helps thinking about what we should do because they are doing great stuff, like Snowden and Assange. At the same time, it feels like we are delegating stuff to them. We should not. So here's a small suggestion of what we could do for the next 10 years. Fight online distraction, because these distractions helps the ideology of neutral technology and everything that is new and stuff like that. Just being controlled by the system instead of controlling the system. Start doing the history of activism, writing our own history, because the stuff I've been presenting and this book that I have here about from counterculture to cyberculture, this is the first step into writing this history of activism. But we also need to write the recent history to understand where it goes, what are the actors, and so on. Write the history of computer science. There was a recent article about Donald Knuth being very angry at our incapacity of writing the history of computer science. Who has been having a course in history of computer science? Okay, so the thing is, in mathematics, you have a strong disciplinary scientific field of the history of mathematics because you have many mathematicians willing to write this history. But in computer science, we have very few computer scientists willing to write this history of computer science. We have people like Donald Knuth. Of course, he's the genius who started so many things that just his biography is a piece of the history of computing science. But because of the funding and because of the difficulty to fund interdisciplinary stuff in the universities, this field is still too fragile. We start to have history of software, but this is different than history of computer science, and this is different than the history of activism. We need to build a free search engine. Any volunteer? Okay, good. I just want to have one volunteer for every task in this list. We need to build, to organize hackathons all over the world, starting in Madrid. Who wants to work with me and organize some nice gathering of 100 people, giving not their money? 2 volunteers, good. If I have 2, I'm very happy. So we need to connect the social economy and free software, because we don't want all this new social economy trend to just use proprietary computers. So who wants to work in this? Who is part of the social economy? Now you're already on some task. No, anyone? Yeah. Okay, I have 1 volunteer. And we need to connect crowdfunding and free software. There is already a project. It's called Libre Funding. You just need to join. You can write blog entries. You can experiment with crowdfunding and free software. We can do surveys of users, of developers if they need crowdfunding. So who would like to work on this? Who is interested in crowdfunding? Nobody ever used crowdfunding? Did you ever use crowdfunding? Nobody? So you're sleeping and you're dead, I know. We need to teach computer science in schools. Who wants to program Java for the rest of his life and win a lot of money? And who wants to be a teacher in primary school and win very low money but do something useful for children? Yeah, many people. Cool. At least 3. There is a huge debate about this, and I think this is really important because of the next point. The next point is to encourage social diversity in computer science. We don't have social diversity in computer science. We don't have it in Wikipedia. We don't have it in free software, and it's bad. When you think about the story I told about New Left and New Communalism, New Communalism, there is a part of the failure is that many communities were just very conservative about what women should do. You know, it's not because you take LSD and you have free sex that you're more mature about what women should do and should not. Many people say, yeah, it's extraordinary that in these experiments, women cooking, it's like real empowerment of women. Well, I don't think, and these communities were also in majority with white, educated, wealthy men. So there is a problem, okay? And we should not repeat this problem. We should work both into the artistic side and also the social criticism and the new left and the traditional way of fighting. And having computer science in schools is the best way to expose, to have a large number of girls exposed to computing and to think, yeah, this is what I want to do. For me, this is really the only way. Enforce legal protection of personal data, because we don't even know what is your personal data that computer companies have. Enforce interoperability to lower the switching cost. So this is what we've been doing in free software in general, but we have this problem of switching cost everywhere, and we should work on that. Consider privacy as a common good. There is also, so I said, the myth of tech neutrality, the myth of constant revolution, and there is this myth also that privacy is just the concern of individuals. It is not. As long as you are using a mailing list, the privacy of everyone is responsible for the privacy of each other, not sharing stuff from others. So my privacy is in the hands of everyone. It's just in my hands, and I could decide, okay, I don't care of this, I care about this. No, it's in the hands of everyone, and this is counterintuitive, and we need to work on that. Protect online anonymity and fight for net neutrality. So this is, each time you do something, somehow you could put your actions into one item or another. So thank you very much, and feel free to ask questions and to go deeper into parts of the history or whatever. Thank you. Oh, I have the pictures. Promise. So, for example, this is Douglas Engelbart doing the mother of all demos. This is a fly over a cuckoo's nest. Remember Jack Nicholson and the Indian? And all this new communalism was really inspired by American Indians and movement there. And the trick in this film is that the Indian is mute, and finally he knows how to speak. And this is Matthew Crawford repairing motorcycles instead of earning lots of money in think tanks. This is design pattern software that you know already. Lady Lovelace, Emacs, and my baby. And the sketchpad. Okay, my baby is more important, but the sketchpad too. This is Mario's Savio, 64, and the Berkeley speech about we have to fight the machines. And this is the Memex, like the idea of some kind of device that would give access to all the knowledge in the world. And this is 45. So, see? I see 2 iPads on the decks. This is just amazing. And this is the Dynabook as drawn by Alan Kay in 68. And Robert Pirsig book about the Zen and the art of motorcycle. And the Whole Earth Catalog. So this is the one from, oops, sorry. This is the one from 68, I guess. But it started, the name Whole Earth is because in '65, Steve Brown thought, we don't have any picture of the Earth viewed from the space. We don't have that picture. So he started a campaign to force the NASA to take this picture and to send it to the world. Because he thought, this is the way we're going to realize that we are all together in the same planet. And I don't know for you, but for me, it has been something important, like to realize that we're all in the same planet. Of course, seeing this, I can realize it now. This is the one laptop per child computer. And I think that's it. Yeah. Thank you again.
¿Preguntas, por favor?
Okay. Well, thanks. First, thanks for the conference. It was really great. My question is about Aaron Swartz. As you may know, it has been a little bit more than 2 years since he's dead. You talk about open access and heroes. So I would like to hear what's your opinion on, well, a bit brief of what you think about it, and especially if you think that the situation now is better than 2 years before, and if you think people are more aware or less aware or the same.
Okay. I thought you were talking about Alan Watts, which is another famous American figure, and he's famous for bringing Buddhism and Zen into in the 30s and 40s, and which was inspiring for people for the Beat generation and all that stuff, and later on for the virtual communities and so on. But Aaron Swartz, okay. First of all, it's very sad. I've seen the documentaries and I've been crying, and maybe I've been crying because I feel like he's a sibling, you know, someone we are sharing the same white, male, educated, fighting background. So could have been me, especially because I've been seeing the movie exactly during my burnout. So I was like completely depressed about life, about being broken by everything, and thought, okay, yeah. And and I really think he didn't want to be a hero. I mean, he just wanted to do some stuff, and he was a hero because everyone suddenly realized how important was what he did. And whether things are better or worse, I think they are better because more people know him and more people know his work. And you can go on the web and read all the Aaron Swartz archives, and they are very, very interesting. And also the trial and the documentary is good for that. The trial is so unfair that the state has and the US state has a responsibility, and it has to acknowledge it. You know, there is another case for unfair trial, is Alan Turing, okay? And there is no need to say that, that apologies are just makes everyone angry. There should be no apologies. That should be the right reaction in the first place. So I think it's good because we can see the trial is so unfair. It's good because we know more of his work. It's good because one of the motto of Aaron was say yes to everything. And when you see what I've been doing, it's just because I was young and I was saying yes to everything. Yeah, and especially to summer. Do this, yes, yeah. I don't know how to do this. Yeah, but I will do this, okay? And Aaron's were like, yeah, say yes to everything. It will come, something will be good out of that. Behind that, there is also the question of civilian disobedience, whether we should do it or not. And for this, I don't have any strong opinion. I kind of respect Socrates' stand, who says, no, you shouldn't use civilian disobedience, because if you use this, you have no respect for the laws that you need to respect afterwards. And the laws is before you and it's after you. And if you break the law, you will have no legitimacy to install new laws. And my death as a philosopher will be the guarantee that the law is more powerful than human beings. And there is the other side where human beings are more important than the laws, and that because of this principle, they should be allowed to break it somehow. And this is not to say that he has breaking the law, which is the real point of the unfairness of the process. So it's really sad. It changed the world in a positive way, sadly.
Thank you.
¿Preguntas? Podéis hacerlas en castellano y yo puedo traducir.
You briefly mentioned in the Hacktivist to-do list in point 9 that a hacktivist should encourage social diversity in computer science, and that has mainly to do with the lack of females in computer science. So do you think that's an inherent fault of computer science, or that it's just a social stigma that we can remove?
I don't know, but I'm sure we don't need to answer this to change it. So I don't know if it's something that is limited to the field of computers or technical or science in general, but I know that we can change it. And although I was not just talking about the female and male ratio, I was also talking about ethnical diversity, background diversity. And this is also very, very important. And I have this feeling that there is some kind of hypocrisy behind the official discourse. The official discourse is like, we like scientists. We should do more stuff to promote scientists. But I'm not sure this is they really want to have more scientists, because when you see, at least in France, the state and all the administration, this is led by people who've been doing literature, like our philosophy or humanities. They do humanities, and at some point, they either become some dead writer or some journalist or some political guy who think in terms of what should I change, speaking and so on. And the scientists are not that present, so we say we need more scientists, but at the same time, I'm not sure we really encourage science in school, which would be the only thing to do for having more diversity. So I'm not sure it answers your question, but
Partly.
Yeah. I don't know about the figures. I know, for example, just one figure is about teaching computer science in school. Maybe you've heard about the Code Week. So it was in October, it was big, and it was really nice to have 3,000 events during 1 week in October about coding in school, and all over Europe, okay? And Spain was very active. I think there was 100 events, some in Madrid. I met the guy who led the events in Madrid. And the ratio female-male in coding is very, very unfair for females. But the ratio for people who were organizing the Code Week, we had more females. We had more girls joining this movement of having workshops for teaching kids. So if you're conservative, you will say, of course, this is because girls are more, are more willing to interact with kids. Or if you are like me, you feel like, okay, maybe they are more conscious that this is the only way to have more diversity. And they just want to be part of this because of that, not just because they like kids. Okay? So this is a way of changing stuff.
Okay, thank you.
And also one thing is that, why is it in this list? So it's not in the hacktivist list. Why about this social diversity and female stuff? This is because it opens up horizons. I mean, if hacktivism is all about using technology to change the society and the political environment, then the more diverse the tribe of hacktivists, then the more chances you have to do the right thing. Just about this.
So the question is, when the basic programming language, they say that BASIC was butchering the computer science. So how should we teach children programming? The basic way or more as a science?
Okay. I see two questions, or I will decide there are two questions. One question is, and that is a question very, very famous right now, is, do we have visual interfaces for teaching programming that are better than BASIC, which was not visual at all? So this is the debate about Seymour Papert, logo, and all that stuff, and Scratch, and eToys, all these environments that are very visual. The question is, are they better to teach programming than the old BASIC that we had? My experience would say that BASIC was good, and I think it was good because it was linear. So you took a program and you were able to read it from beginning to end. And even the weird go-to 20 has some cognitive effect that is good, because it's like, you know, a novel from which you are the hero. Remember these novels? You could read and you decide, go to this place. And you turn the pages and you go to this place. And okay, it was very famous when I was young. And the basic program is like that. So it's very easy to read, to remember, and it's easy to understand what it does at first glance. Now, when everything is modular, you have to navigate through a maze of modules, and it's hard to understand the global functionality. So BASIC was good for that, and visual interfaces now are good for lowering the threshold. Even if you're not at ease with reading and with textual information, you can start doing some stuff. So it's more fun, it's more rewarding for the stuff they are doing. So I don't have a definite answer on this, but I'm kind of nostalgic about BASIC, because it was linear and because you could read it in your bed. Like, who is reading programming in his bed nowadays? I mean, without a computer. And when you had reviews, paper reviews, you could read programs, and that, I think that was great. I'm nostalgic. So this is the first question: visual interaction versus BASIC as a textual program. And the other question is BASIC versus computer science. I think we should teach both computer science and programming. And in France, there is a bias that programming is just too easy to be taught. Okay? Slaves could do programming because this is just interpreting. Ideally, we could have a machine do the programming if we can find the right language to tell the machine what we want to do. So the only problem is that to find this language is programming. Okay? So there is this frame of mind, and it's because mathematicians are very strong in France. So they kind of despise the small hands that are doing the conversion. And so I'm really pushing so that programming is seen as something as high profile as computer science. Because computer science inherits the aura from mathematics. So that's good, and that's why people want to teach it. But I think we need to go further and really think that doing hands-on stuff with computers is teaching something for real. This is not just interpretation. And in France, we have really this problem that people do, engineers, when they are good enough, they stop programming and they do management. Okay? I don't know if you have the same in Spain, but this is stupid. If you're good enough to program, you should program more. And you should teach more about what you've been inventing in programming. And if you're good in managing, yeah, then you should manage. But the high school that we have in France, they despise programming for that, because they say, okay, there are so many people who want to program, and it's just something for nerds that are eating pizzas and listening Metallica. Okay. Which is also something I wanted to say. We have to fight this, this pop culture of programmer, of being cool, okay? Sorry to spoil the party, but being cool is cool between 20 and 25. But after that, you have to read history to make kids and to earn a living. So I'm not cool. Someone's cool, want to ask a question, go ahead. I'm cool enough.
Mi pregunta es, ¿por qué durante la charla has estado diciendo que ponía el ejemplo de qué quieres, trabajar para una gran empresa o enseñar, sobre todo en el punto 8, ganar poco dinero enseñando? Pues no se debería...
You were saying in the point 8 about teaching, you were comparing working on a big company, programming all your life and whatever, and earning money versus earning little money and teaching.
Yeah.
Continue.
No debería fomentarse que este tipo de cosas, en general, el enseñar, que se valora muy poco aquí, te produzca más dinero, y si para llegar a hacer esa lista hay que ganar poco dinero, ¿de dónde sacas el dinero?
He's saying something very interesting. That would be that shouldn't we promote and encourage that those that are teaching or that are trying to fill up this list should be actually the ones earning loads of money? Because if that's not the situation, how are we going to get the money in order to fill up this list?
Say again the question. No, or just...
Okay, the idea, that what he's saying is that you put in comparison to working this list, for example, in teaching computer science in schools,
Yeah.
versus working in a large corporation, programming Java for the rest of your life and earning loads of money. What he's saying is that shouldn't we encourage, shouldn't we facilitate that in some way people that are fulfilling this list, doing the tasks in this list, are earning a lot of money? Because if that's not the situation, how are we going to do it without that?
Okay. Great, thanks. I'm still alive. I've been through the burnout, and I'm alive, and I can buy food to my baby. She's 2 years old now. So, Wikimedia Foundation, what is amazing is that the donations are very small. Like the average donation when they are doing the campaign is $30, meaning that many, many people are giving. Of course, because many people are exposed to Wikipedia. And in the software industry, we have lots of open source companies. But this ecosystem is not, they are just big players. There are big players on one side and people starving on the other side. Like even the budget from the Free Software Foundation is just 1 day of fundraising in Wikipedia. This is stupid, and they are not even managing to do it. So I'm saying this to explain why we designed the hackathon. The hackathon idea was like, we need to put more diversity and we need to support financially small free software or free project initiatives. Because we need to fight against this culture of, I am 21 years old, I have some time, I'm a student, so I can hack for free because I don't have any economic constraints, versus we need to give more financial power to small projects, and we need to come closer to a model a la Wikimedia Foundation, where we have many supporters. This because of the illusion of gratis. Okay? Because everything is gratis doesn't mean we don't need to pay for creating it. So we pay by your time and so on and so on. But we need to change the economy from open source, big companies getting paid because they are working with big clients. And sometimes I was like, okay, I'm spending 3 hours a day, and my program is using all the developers in Google.
and I don't earn money. So this whole feeling should change so that everyone is in charge. As a consumer, you are in charge every day because you don't want to give €5 to Starbucks and you prefer to go to Cafelito. Okay? Because you prefer the people from Cafelito. You vote with your wallet. Okay? This is voting with your wallet. Today, we vote with our attention and time. And this is invisible, so we don't feel like voting. So the idea behind the hackathon is voting with the wallet of people who have some money, because I don't. And the more we can do this, maybe we can leverage and change the economy. It's not going to be a big change, but at least psychologically, it helps developers thinking, yeah, I could ask money for what I'm doing. Or it could help activists saying, yeah, I could ask money for what I'm doing. And actually, this is how Steve Brand was making a success. He was a genius of building bridges and doing money with his new ideas, like the Earth, the ideas of having a picture of the Earth. He's starting to print badges and to sell badges. You know, the same way Richard Stallman started to sell Emacs first because he needed money for the GNU project. So we need to encourage this kind of hybrid projects that are economically sustainable and going into the right direction. I completely agree. And for example, for teaching coding, there are at least 5 or 6 companies in France who ask money to the parents so that the children go in the holidays and learn teaching in the holidays, which goes in the right direction because some teachers are interested and think, okay, I could do this in my school. And it creates an ecosystem where the government will have some handbooks because they want handbooks. And those small companies will write the handbooks. So it's possible. It's hard, but it's possible. And we shouldn't think that the free, everything that we have on the internet will help us. It doesn't help. No. The question is, would you like to pay a bit each year to have Wikipedia? And the answer is yes, for many people. Would you like to pay for having GNU Linux, for having Ubuntu, for having all this software? And the answer is not yes for now.